Good morning, everybody. Glad to be back on the podcast. So much has happened over the weekend. And prior to the show starting, I was listening to Judge Napolitano, retired judge, talking about this whole situation of Trump in New York. And he made some really good and valid points, saying that this is the biggest money grab that the government has ever done of a private citizen for a victimless crime. And I've talked about this, saying how there is no victim. Obviously, you've heard about this all over the news. There is no victim in this crime. All of the banks that Letitia James was referencing that Trump had defrauded out of, from overstating the value of his properties. All of them came in and testified and said that they weren't even damaged, that they would do business again with the man. And so how do you have a judgment of, $500 million with interest compounding on that daily while he goes through the appeals process? How is this even possible, honestly? And if the courts hadn't stepped in and reduced that bond, I mean, I think there probably would have been a bigger uproar in the United States than what there already was, right? People are just sick of watching what's happening to this man and sick of seeing how the justice system is being used to twist and turn. And I'm amused every single time that I hear the Democrat talking heads and the elected officials saying, if Trump gets into office, he's going to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after all of his enemies. What in the hell do they think the Department of Justice is doing for Biden? What the heck do they think all these attorney generals are doing for Biden? How much money did George Soros put into Letitia James and Fannie Willis being put into the positions they were elected? How much money went into their campaign from George Soros? That's one of the big things I want to know. How much of a part did he play in all of this, getting these vindictive women into an attorney general position and do nothing but go after Trump? Letitia James ran on that on her campaign, and you've got all of these criminal things that are happening in New York in her district, and it's no bail. It's release them back out into the streets to commit more of the same crimes that they've already done. And then you've got this illegal situation on top of it. I'm reading where cities across the United States, especially on the East Coast, they're spending, $15 million a month, $15 billion, billions of dollars is what the projected amount's going to be of what these cities are going to spend in 2024 to support these illegals and provide housing. So, of course, it makes sense that there'd be money grabs like this to try and shore up their losses, right? Is that what's really going on? Are they going to start going after private citizens, wealthy private citizens, in order to steal their money and be able to shore up the cost of the decimation that the Biden administration is creating in our country? It just makes you wonder. It doesn't make any sense for Letitia James to claim that, she's just the smart, intelligent woman, to think as an attorney general that it's going to stand in the courts of trying to take $500 million away from a man who overvaluated his properties. Who hasn't? But here's the funny thing. The very thing that they're claiming that Trump did and that was fraudulent in their eyes, especially the judge, he valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Well, you've got vacant acre lots going for $200 million down there in the Mar-a-Lago area. And now when all of this was going on this past week, when Trump was unable to get the surety bond, they were saying, well, how could he not? Mar-a-Lago's worth $200 million, $500 million. They were coming up with all of these different amounts that was completely different from what the judge in New York was saying. He was saying $18 million was the value of Mar-a-Lago. You can't have it both ways. And that's what these people are doing. And eventually, when you're not telling the truth, eventually the lies catch up with you. It always does. That's just the way it is. That's just how it happens. Something will come up down the road, and what you've lied about in the past, that lie has now hurt your narrative of the truth today. Because, 3 weeks ago you were saying this and now you're saying that. What is it? It's always easier to remember the truth because the truth is the truth. You don't even have to think twice about what you're going to say or how you're going to defend yourself because it's the truth. So anyway, I'm just glad to see that he's having some sort of a little break. He's going to be able to come up with this money within 10 days. I'm sure that Letitia James is just beside herself because she was just there ready to go in and seize Trump property. She had already filed all the necessary paperwork. And I'm sure that she was probably in a pink padded room that day because she was so furious, which I think is hilarious. But anyway, the other thing that happened overnight was this Boston Bridge, the container ship losing power and then going right into the braces, part of the structure. I want to just talk about how this is going to affect the area, the traffic. Let me get this article up here. So the effects of the Baltimore Bridge collapse will be horrific. Let me break it down. So this is a huge port, and 2 people have been rescued from the water, and I think there's still 6 missing construction workers and others who may be submerged in cars under 50 feet of water with the tide starting to come back in. So they actually were able to warn drivers to get off the bridge because they knew when the cargo ship had sent out like a mayday that it was imminent that there was going to be a collision and that the bridge was going to probably be going down. And so they were able to stop a lot of cars, but I guess there's 6 people who are missing and some of them may have been in cars, but at least 40 ships are now more or less trapped inside the port, according to Reuters, and at least 30 other ships plan to arrive there. They will likely have to reroute shipping to other ports on the East Coast. However, this will put additional demand on these ports, and shippers may not be able to access the U.S. market as efficiently, he said. One critical question is, can the other ports handle the products that were being destined to Baltimore? The whole port seems to be out of commission today, and this accident will have long-lasting impacts on American shipping and supply chains. No one is quite sure how bad it will be. It will be, probably brought forward in the next few days of how this really is going to affect it. But this just shows you, all the different ports there and that the ships going underneath this bridge go to. The port's private and public terminals handle 847,158 autos and light trucks in 2023, and the most of any U.S. port for the 13th straight year. And in 2023, the port ranked first in the nation in handling automobiles, light trucks, farm and construction machinery, as well as imported sugar and gypsum. The port ranked second in the country for exporting coal, and in 2022, the port ranked sixth for importing coffee, 119,000 tons worth $609 million. So this is saying you thought the car market was going to be a bloodbath if Biden's EPA bans new gas cars by 2030. You haven't seen anything yet, because political jokes aside, the effects of this disaster will completely shift the way companies think about shipping and logistics, not to mention local and interstate commerce that use the bridge. The future of the struggling city of Baltimore is also up in the air. And last year, Maryland Governor Wes Moore praise-reported a press release noting how many jobs it brings to the area. So now what? What is going to happen? It generates about 15,300 direct jobs with nearly 140,000 jobs overall linked to port activities. So, and it's responsible for nearly $3.3 billion in personal wages and salaries, $2.6 billion in business revenue, and $395 million in state and local tax revenue annually. And Maryland is already facing a massive growing deficit, and Baltimore makes up a large percentage of Maryland. So the estimates show a structural deficit exceeding $1 billion by the end of the decade. So Maryland will go into the red after the 2024 fiscal year, and the Department of Legislative Services predicts a structural budget deficit of $418 million. So this is, you don't think about these sort of things when you hear these kind of articles. You think, oh, a bridge collapse, but you don't think about the economic trickle effect it's going to have on the whole United States. And you don't think about the jobs and the wages of the people there locally. And Baltimore has been hard hit for decades. And now, if this is creating that many jobs, and now, this is going to come to a grinding halt. This is going to be devastating for Maryland and for the people who live there. So we have to pray for them. But, I watched the video of it, and it just seems odd to me how the ship lost power and immediately veered towards, the structural part of the bridge instead of going underneath where they all go. It just seemed odd to me. So it's going to be interesting in the next few days to hear more about this. There's some articles out there talking about a cyber attack. There's, other ones saying, no, it was strictly just that the power went out. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out in the next few days on this situation. But praying for the 6 people who are missing to be found. Obviously, that would be terrible for 6 lives to be lost. And the construction workers. I think 2 of them were rescued and taken to the hospital. One of them refused treatment, was okay and sent home. And the other one was also released from the hospital, was what I last heard before I started the podcast. So keep those people in your prayers, folks. Over the weekend, also, Kamala Harris decided that she was going to go down to Guatemala. Let me pull up this article. And she went down. She's planning to go down, or here it is. Here it is. Okay, let me bring this up so I can share it with you. She's planning a trip down to she announces an additional development assistant for Guatemala. So we are 3+ years into open borders, 3+ years, 3 years into her being, named the borders czar, and her not really paying attention or doing anything. Well, now she has decided that she's going to go down to Guatemala, visit the president there, and announce that the United States intends to provide $170 million for development, economic, health, and security assistance for Guatemala, subject to congressional notification, including a planned U.S. aid investment of $135 million. This foreign assistance supports the Biden-Harris administration root causes strategy in Guatemala so that the Guatemalans can build a more secure, prosperous, and democratic future in their home communities. Listen, El Salvador is now considered one of the safest countries in the world. And they didn't need this $300 million from the United States in order to accomplish it. They needed a president who came in there, rounded up the MS-13 gang members, threw them all into jail, cleaned up the communities, and the people took El Salvador back, and they're prospering there. And so anybody coming from El Salvador saying we're claiming asylum is a kook. And the only people that would be claiming asylum in the United States from El Salvador right now is MS-3 gang members who got out of the country and are heading this way. But Guatemala, we have to provide, $300 million in order for them to be able to pull their bootstraps on and get up and going. They need to stop allowing the men of their country to leave, number one. They need to force them to stay. They've got borders in their countries. They know they're going to join up with these caravans. They need to stop them. They need to say, no, we need you here. The government's going to pay you to work here. Guatemala already gets foreign aid from the United States. And Guatemala already gets remittances from all the people that they already have living here in the United States. So to think that Guatemala is a poor country right now is ridiculous. Yes, they've had the gangs and stuff activity there in Guatemala, but they need to follow the lead of El Salvador. That's the way any of those countries are going to survive. And then you watch Venezuela, and what does the president there do? He's opening the prisons again. I'm going to go over an article about that. But how far behind is Kamala Harris in this? And the only reason she's doing this, folks, is because it's an election year. She's got to show that she's done something. She has to show up as the borders are somewhere. But when you start promising this kind of money, $170 million for development, economic, health, and security assistance, by the way, that we could use here in the United States right now, and then an additional $135 million to build a more secure, prosperous, and democratic future in their home communities. Is that what they're going to promise every country that these illegals are coming from at our borders? There's over 170 countries that illegal immigration is happening into the United States right now. So if this is her solution for Guatemala, is this going to be her solution for every other country? How much more money can the United States continue giving away? Does the Biden administration, does Kamala Harris, does AOC, do any of those kooks understand that you can't just keep printing money? There has to be something to back that money up that they keep printing. And I believe this whole push for these open borders for the United States and the push coming from the United Nations, the Red Cross is even in the thick of all of this. Don't donate your money to the Red Cross. They're in the thick of all of this stuff. Don't donate your money to Catholic charities right now. They're getting unbelievable billions of dollars, all of these NGOs, to work against us as Americans. Our taxpayers are going to non-governmental organizations that are working against the American people, that are working against the sovereignty of our country, that are working against the safety of the citizens of the United States. They don't care what they're doing because they're making money. Money. It's all about money. It's never about the people. It's never about the safety. It's all about the money. The Red Cross, the UN, they're all down there outside the Darien Gap, giving these guys maps, telling them where to go. They don't care about their safety. They don't care what happens to them while they're traipsing through the Darien Gap. They don't care what's happening to the jungle that these people are decimating. Where's all these environmentalists who are screaming and yelling about electric cars and all this stuff that's going to damage our environment more than help it. Where are all these people when one of the last pristine jungles in the world is being decimated? It's like over 600,000 tons of garbage is in that jungle right now, left there. The pristine jungle is just being trampled on. It's like a super highway that's been trampled through the jungle down there. The United Nations and the Red Cross don't care about what happens to those people in the jungle. The UN and the Red Cross don't go into the jungle. They don't set up concession stands and rest areas for them inside the jungle because they know there's cartel in there, and they know they're killing people, and they know they're raping women and children. And yet they continue to stand there and hand them maps and tell them where to go. This is crap, you guys. And this is our taxpayer money that's going to fund all of this. And what's really interesting to me is, I was reading through the Constitution, a little Constitution handbook I had, and the purse strings and where taxpayer money will go is all at the discretion of Congress. I want to know where the Biden administration is getting all of this money to siphon out to all of these places because, and maybe I'm just not hearing enough or reading enough into these omnibus bills that there is this kind of money going to these NGOs, that it's naming the Red Cross, that it's naming Catholic Charities, or is it naming something else that leaves the congressional members baffled when they're voting on this, and it looks like something good, but really it's nefarious dealings going on underneath the table to where that money's actually going to these NGOs to fund this. This is what we've become. And you've got an administration who lies, and says there's nothing he can do about the immigration situation, illegal immigration situation. Congress has got to do it. No, dude, we had it all under control. And you came in and undid about 94 executive orders that the Trump administration had put into place that kept our country safe and kept illegal immigration at a minimum. You undid all of that. You could redo it in a split second because you're real handy with your executive orders when it's something that's going to benefit the Democrats and your agendas. So don't fall for their lies. We do need Trump in office. We need somebody who's going to take the bull by the horns and make things happen. He understands what he's able to do as the president of the United States. All Biden knows is what he's told by the one world order cabal of what you need to be doing to destroy the last remnants of the United States. That's all Biden knows. He's just doing his marching orders, the puppet masters, Obama, the Council of Foreign Affairs. Who else is behind all of this? Can only imagine. But when you've got a good plan in place, like what was happening under the Trump administration, when you have a man that met with these foreign leaders and basically scared the bejeebies out of them, they wouldn't be pulling this kind of stuff across the world either. All of these wars going on. And, the Federal Reserve is just like, yeah, man, keep this up because they are making money on every side of every war. We're just enriching the Federal Reserve, which for those of you who don't know is not a part of the federal government. The Treasury is where our money should be. That's where the taxpayer money should be going, not into the Federal Reserve. And surely not into the Biden administration's hands to dole out where they think the money should go. Congress needs to step up and start blocking some of this stuff. But again, you don't have a majority of the conservatives enough. And you've got these rhinos who are quitting, stepping away from their office early, leaving Congress in a quandary, really. I mean, what are we going to do if we don't have a majority? The Democrats will step all over us. My biggest thing about these elected officials in DC too is, how do they sleep at night, honestly? How do you vote for something knowing that you're screwing your American constituents over? How do you do that and sleep at night? How do you vote along party lines knowing it's detrimental to your country, detrimental to the citizens and the constituents in your districts? How do you do that? I just don't know how it could be done. And you hear enough people screaming and yelling, and these Democrats see they've got access to, and it's either they just don't want to look at it because it will weigh on their conscience, but they see what's happening at the border. They know what's happening at the border. And how can they still keep voting the way they do and standing up for an administration and backing up Mayorkas during his impeachment hearings, knowing what he's doing to human beings? We are emboldening the international criminals in the world to come here. We've just invited every international criminal you can think of, especially when you have a federal judge say illegal aliens have Second Amendment rights in our country as long as they haven't committed a crime. Well, nobody's vetted at the border. So all of these people coming over the border are crimeless asylum seekers, supposedly, because there's no international database for most of the countries where they come from. Look at all the people that are coming through and they're being arrested in Texas and in Arizona because it's been found out that they have, kidnapping, extortion, murder, rape, all these charges against them from the country that they came from. But as they come to the border, they're just let in. And how many days or weeks or months does it take for this follow-up to happen? And what damage are they going to do to a citizen in the United States? Or what damage are they going to do to infrastructure? Or what damage are they going to do to our communities in the meantime? These are the types of things I think of. I don't think our elected officials think of it. When they're sitting on their high horse making all these votes and they don't even make any sense. All right. So we have another caravan leaving. I'll share this with you. Another caravan was put together over the weekend, and they are leaving. This was on Monday. 3,000 migrants left from the Bicentennial Park in Tapaloosa in the Migrant Way of the Cross 2024 to the northern border. 3,000 people from Central, South America, and the Caribbean, accompanied by the activist Luis Garcia Villagran and the priest Heyman Vasquez, left the Bicentennial Park for Mexico City with the intention of reaching the north of the country and fulfilling the American dream. With backpacks on their shoulders full of dreams and illusions, with a wooden cross, they seek to represent the ordeal they live in Mexico on the southern border, where the authorities of the National Institute of Migration intend to have them stranded. Now, there are a few women and children in this picture, but the majority of this is men, fighting age men. Now, if these men would stay in their countries, they would be able to rebuild them in a way that El Salvador has done. This is what I'm talking about. This just doesn't even make any sense that they allow these mass migrations of men, fighting age men who could rebuild their infrastructure and the economy and get businesses up and going. Why they continue to let them leave their country? It doesn't make any sense. And when you've got the kind of crime that is happening, hold on a second. So these detainees, and I don't know where this is, if it's Mexico. Anyway, personnel from the Organized Crime Investigation Brigade of the Investigative Police arrested 8 people for the crime of kidnapping and extortion that occurred between 2023 and 2024. There are 5 Venezuelan citizens, all with irregular migratory status, and 3 with criminal records, and 3 Chileans, 2 of whom are men and 1 woman. So what they do is they extorted money from a merchant of Venezuelan nationality who, after refusing to pay, was kidnapped for 5 hours. So this is what they're famous for, these Venezuelan gang members too. And there's some pretty dangerous gangs in Chile also. And so a lot of these countries are kicking their people out because they know that these people will just migrate and end up in the United States, and they can just be rid of these gang members. This is why I was saying that the Venezuelan government has again I'm going to share this one with you. The Venezuelan government has again emptied out their, I think they released about 100. Let's get this article up here. So it says that Americans warned to brace for a second brace for a second wave of Venezuelan gangsters coming over the border as the country's prison. At least 100 inmates are released. These are killers. A second wave of Venezuela's worst criminals could soon be rushing over to the United States border after being released from prison in their home country. Daily Mail was the first to report on the first wave of Venezuelan gangsters to cross the border and filter into American cities, and including henchmen for dictator Nicolas Maduro and members of the notorious Tren de Aragua. I can never say that. That terrible gang from Venezuela. Now more gangbangers and thugs who have been locked away are being released, according to a government official. Since Friday, they've been carrying out in the state of Miranda an operation looking into preventative centers and prisons. Supreme Court of Justice Magistrate Edgar Gavita said, adding that 100 prisoners have already been turned loose. We are looking at a case-by-case at anyone, giving justice to those who at one time made a mistake in their lives to expedite justice. Speaking to the Daily Mail by phone Monday, Miami immigration attorney Rolando Vasquez warned these are killers. He compared them to Jose Ibarra, the Venezuelan man accused of murdering Georgia student Laken Riley. These are career criminals. Maduro is just sending more. Notorious Prison Yard and its sister facility Yards 2 are as well as a third prison called the El Rodeo, are slowly letting prisoners go. They're thugs. These are prisons where there's thugs and killers, Vasquez explained, adding, these are not the prisons where they house the political opposition. Yar 1 is an open prison where prison bosses known as Prains rule, according to InsightCrime.org. El Rodeo is another prison, and it's also been plagued with violence and corruption. 2 El Rodeo wardens and a soldier were charged in 2011 for corruption after a riot at the facility left 22 dead after rival gangs unleashed chaos, leading to a month-long standoff with authorities. You know, these 2 are from that gang from Venezuela, and they've both been charged with beating that New York cop in January. This was a picture in a September prison raid there in Venezuela. And, you know, law enforcement is concerned about them teaming up with the MS-13 gangs here. And then you've got the Satans, another violent gang that already has members here. This is just an ongoing problem, and it's going to keep growing because these countries realize, and I think that maybe Venezuela, well, they got a whole another set of their own problems, but with the socialist regime and everything. But when they look at El Salvador and what they've been able to pull off in 2 years, that is a model that all these other South American countries need to take on. But what it entails is either having a president and leadership and law enforcement strong enough to be able to go out and round up all these MS-13 gang members like El Salvador did, and get them into prisons and not allow the corruption to enter the prisons like they have in Venezuela, or they transport him out of the country, say, the only way you're going to be safe from prison is get out of our country. And so, they slowly make their way up from Venezuela, from El Salvador, from all of these countries where they've been released and said, get out of here, you're going to go to prison. Their whole way up, they're doing nothing but causing chaos, raping women, stealing, extorting, murdering. It doesn't matter. They're violent. They're disgusting. They're evil. The things that they've done and the articles that I've read about what they've been involved in. So we've got to be careful. And you know what? If I know this just from reading and investigating and doing research, the Biden administration and Mayorkas know this, folks, and they don't care. They don't give a damn that these are the people that they're letting over our borders. And God knows who else in the Middle East and all these other terrorist-related countries. They don't care. And that's a sad reality about it. So I want you to see this. Listen to it.
By providing people with advanced travel authorization, it allows them to avoid human traffickers and drug cartels and other criminal organizations. Accepting this amendment will lead to more encounters at the border, pulling our agents from other work and responsibilities, like stopping drug cartels from getting fentanyl through our border. And it will create long lines at ports of entry as individuals travel to the border to apply for asylum. By providing people with
so what the Democrats are trying to make you believe is long lines at the airport and long lines at the border and long lines and long lines and long lines. That's what we have to prevent. But the Biden administration is allowing illegal aliens with no verified ID to present the CBP One app at airport security checkpoints, all part of Biden's unilateral parole scheme. And Democrats say that's good because otherwise the lines might get too long. The lines might get too long. That is their reasoning for supporting this sort of thing. This is what I'm telling you. There is no vetting of any of these people. They get on their phone, they go to the CBP app, they apply for asylum, and then they come to the border and they show their phone and they're led into the United States. Wow. Mayorkas. Great job, Secretary, Department of Homeland Security. You are doing awesome. This is a sort of process that this Democratic administration has brought into place, folks. The Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11 from terrorist attacks happening on the United States, in the United States. And what is Mayorkas doing? He is inviting the very people who will make that happen in the United States into our country. That is not a Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. That is a treasonous pig. I'm just going to say it. That's treasonous to the oath that he took. And every time he sits on the witness stand or testifying before Congress with that smug smile on his face that I just want to slap off of his face. And he keeps saying the border's secure. He's a liar. He's a liar. And every Democrat official and any Republican who are going to be voting against impeaching him, they need to be voted out of office because they know he's lying and they're supporting his lies against the American people, the sovereignty of this country, the safety of its citizens. This is the kind of treasonous stuff that's happening, folks. And people aren't really paying enough attention to where this is bad. This is really bad. And this isn't just on Mayorkas. And this isn't just on Biden. This is on every elected official who supports them and votes for them and votes against impeaching them and supports them and fights. And when the hearings come up and Mayorkas is in there lying through his teeth, the border's secure, the border's secure. And you have these Democrat representatives continually bringing up Trump and the problems he created when he was president at the border. Look, folks, that was the most secure our border's ever been, is when Trump was in office. And that's what the Democrats hate, because they know that we're right when we say that. They know that Mayorkas is lying. They know that everything going on is wrong. And they don't care because they're going to follow their marching orders from the Democratic Party, and they will never vote against something because they will be ousted. They will remove all the millions of dollars that they put into their their campaign coffers. They will remove all that money and leave them to hang out to dry, and they'll find a new Democrat who will follow their marching orders to replace them. It's the same way here in Arizona. You watch how the Democrats vote down at the Capitol, and there have been some votes where, people really aren't paying attention. And then veto queen governor Katie Hobbs vetoes this certain bill, and it comes back. There's been a few times where the Republicans have tried to override a veto when it's come to border security and election integrity and that sort of thing. But these Democrats will flip. There was something called the tamale bill. And that was where they had a bill that would allow people to make food at home. They had food handler license to make tamales and that sort of thing, and take them out and sell them to the public. It really supplemented a lot of people's income around Christmas time and the holidays, and allowed people to, have the extra money to afford Christmas. And a lot of the Democrats voted with it. Well, when it got to Katie Hobbs' desk, she vetoed it. And when it came back and they said, let's override the veto and get this passed, all the Democrats who voted for it voted against it when it was in override the veto type vote, because they know their place. They know they better not stand up to the Democratic governor. They're taking notes and taking numbers and taking names, and you're dirt. And it's unfortunate and sad that we don't have a Republican Party that is so united, and we are all fighting for the same conservative values and the sovereignty and safety of our country, that we don't have every elected Republican member voting for these types of things. On a federal level now is what I'm talking about. It's just crazy. I'm going to show you a couple more videos. I'm going to share this one because this is an independent reporter who's down at the border, and everyday military battalion crosses illegally through the United States border waiting for marching orders. Folks, this is the truth, man. This is honest to God truth.
Carolina del Norte. ¿Dónde vienes? Ecuador. ¿A dónde vas? New Jersey. Where are you from? Synagogue? Where are you going? New York? Where you from?
Yes.
You going to New York?
Yes.
Thank you. You?
New York.
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 New York? You? Thank you. You? Thank you. You? New York? Where you going?
New York.
Thank you. Where you going? Thank you. ¿Dónde vienes?
Ecuador.
¿Dónde vas?
A Chicago.
¿Dónde vienes?
Ecuador.
¿Dónde vas?
Chicago.
¿Dónde vienes?
Colombia.
¿Dónde vas?
Atlanta.
¿Dónde vienes?
Colombia.
¿Dónde vas?
Boston.
Where you from? Where? Where you going? Chicago? New York? Where? Where?
What?
Where you going?
No. Bari. Ohio.
Ohio. Thank you. Where you from?
Ohio.
Thank you. You?
Kansas.
Kansas. You?
You're from Syria.
From Syria. You're from Syria too?
Yeah. All over.
Okay. Okay. Where you going?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. You?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Columbus.
Columbus.
Texas.
Texas.
New Jersey.
New Jersey.
New York.
New York.
New York.
So you see, those men from Syria are going all over the country. They're not just concentrating in one spot, but it's funny because most of the men from Senegal go to New York. A lot of them come over here at the port of entry, in Lukeville, Arizona, and coming over in a lot of the unsecured areas down here in southern Arizona now. But the majority of them are all going to New York all the time. And you heard a couple of them say Chicago, but then you hear some of them say Kansas, Ohio, New Jersey. And that's frightening with those people from Syria, because you don't know, are they spreading them out for a reason? Are there already people where they're headed? Are there going to be terrorist cells in the United States? We know nothing about those people that Anthony was talking to. Nothing. Yet this is what Mayorkas, and this is what Kamala Harris, and this is what the Democrats all say. These people, they deserve asylum. They deserve asylum. I want to get this one article because you see. Okay. Yeah, they're now issuing alerts at the embassy, U.S. embassy in Paris, alerting Americans to get out of there because of what happened in Moscow. Who knows what's going to happen there? Biden considers granting amnesty and handing green cards to illegal immigrants. I want to bring this other article up. All right, here it is. So Biden is considering granting amnesty and handing out green cards to illegal immigrants in a bid to act on the worsening immigration crisis. They're weighing several ideas to take a tougher stance on the southern border crisis and illegal immigration amid criticisms that he has thus far failed to act on either. The administration could start doling out green cards to illegal immigrants who have long stayed inside the United States, thereby giving them amnesty to stay in the country. 3 people familiar with the planning told Politico. This is not going to help the situation. The plan would grant immigrants. They say the plan would grant migrants. The plan would grant illegal aliens who have been in the country for more than 10 years access to the cancellation of removal program, provided they have relatives who would suffer if they were deported. Migrants could then receive a green card or permanent residency grant if they meet the cancellation or removal requirements and an immigration judge rules in their favor. So they say this is going to be for those who have been in the country for more than 10 years. But I guarantee you, they will be applying it to the people who've been in the country for 10 minutes. It would represent a large effort by Biden to take action on behalf of illegal immigrants who have long stayed in the U.S. The Obama administration took similar action in 2012 with the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the DACA program, which delayed the deportation of illegal immigrants who came to the United States when they were minors. One idea the administration has moves is increasing support to states and cities that have taken in a high number of illegal immigrants, such as Denver, Colorado, and New York City. Biden also considered using executive authority. Oh, he can use it to benefit illegals. He's considered using executive authority to make it harder to claim asylum at the southern border by raising the standards for a migrant to claim credible fear of being deported to their home country. Okay, I misspoke there. But then you've got this article, and I'm running out of time. 40% of migrants fail to establish credible fear required for asylum, USCIS says. And it's more than that. Because the other 60% are using the catchphrases and the verbiage that the Red Cross, that the United Nations, that all these NGOs tell them. Credible fear is a benchmark required for migrants to establish how they will be persecuted or harmed if they are sent home due to political beliefs, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, and other reasons. Yeah, I find that hard to believe that 60% of them are passing at this point. So, according to San Diego Supervisor Jim Desmond, more than 13,000 asylum seekers who did establish a credible fear have been dropped off at a transit centers in San Diego since last month. This practice began on February 23rd when a welcome center for migrants closed due to a lack of county funding. Yeah, San Diego ran out of money to take care of these folks. But we have to stay vigilant. I was reading another article. I'm just going to tell you real quick that everybody needs to be aware too, when you're in these New York situations too, that a lot of these illegals are taking Uber positions. And there was a story that this girl up there in New York, and she was talking to her fiance as she was on her way to a bridal shower. She realized that the Uber is taking her to East Harlem, and he was checking her location, and he called her. She didn't pick up. I called again. She didn't pick up. He called New York police to tell them the situation. The destination is a little straight shot south of where they lived. You don't go into East Harlem to get to Chelsea from the Upper West Side. I'm scared something terrible is happening. And she finally calls. She opened the door while the guy was driving. He stopped the car in confusion. She jumped out and he sped away. She checks Uber app and he never clicked in that he picked her up. So these are a lot of these illegals that are coming and getting vehicles. And of course, there's people there in New York who have these vehicles. There's people there who are Uber Eats deliveries, and they give the work to the illegals. So you have to be really careful about when you're in these big cities like this, where there's a lot of these illegal aliens gathered and congregated. You have to be careful and always be vigilant of what's going on around you. I've run out of time. I'm sorry. There was a few other things that I wanted to talk about today, but maybe we'll pick up tomorrow. And thank you for joining me. Have a good evening.